Indiana Newsdesk is made possible in part by the following. IU Center for Applied Cybersecurity Research, working to improve cybersecurity and provide policy guidance through partnerships with industry, government, and academia.
Smithville Fiber, the Gigacity Company, fiber internet, HD, and digital IPTV in southern Indiana. More information at smithville.com.
And by WTIU members. Thank you.
Coming up on Indiana Newsdesk. The terrorist attacks in Paris hit close to home for a number of Hoosiers.
I feel alone because I'm over here and they're over there. I feel helpless because I'm over here.
Ahead, how they're banding together and the latest on the governor's approach to protect Hoosiers from harm. We ask whether he can legally keep Syrian refugees from entering the state. Plus, this week we got our first look at legislation aimed at preventing gender discrimination in Indiana. But does it strike an equal balance between protecting religious liberty and civil rights?
When you start dealing with people's fundamental core beliefs, you're in real dangerous territory.
And after 3 terms, Mark Kruzan is winding down his tenure as Bloomington mayor. Ahead, what's left on his to-do list and how is he working with the new administration to prepare for the transition? Those stories and the latest news headlines from across the state right now on Indiana Newsdesk. Welcome to Indiana Newsdesk. I'm Joe Wren. In the wake of terrorist attacks that killed at least 129 people in Paris, politicians are debating the best way to defeat ISIS and how to deal with Syrian refugees entering the United States. Governor Mike Pence is among more than 24 governors who are temporarily refusing to accept Syrian refugees. Reporter Barbara Brozier joins us now. Barbara, how is Pence's decision affecting families here in Indiana?
Well, Joe, we know at least 2 families will now be diverted to other states. A couple and their 5-year-old son was supposed to arrive in Indianapolis yesterday, but were instead redirected to Connecticut. The second family is scheduled to arrive next month. Pence says barring the refugees is the best way to protect Hoosiers, but critics say he and other politicians are acting out of fear.
In the face of so much darkness,
somehow we knew that would happen again.
There's a flicker of light.
There's no message that is stronger than this.
Communities across the globe are coming together to honor the victims of recent terrorist attacks in Europe and the Middle East. People huddled in front of the iconic sample gates at Indiana University earlier this week, providing comfort to students like Agatha Stopnicki, who was born in Paris and still has family there.
I feel alone because I'm over here and they're over there. I feel helpless because I'm over here and I'm a 20-year-old student and there's not much I can do, and they're all over there and they can't walk in the streets, they can't feel safe. I had cousins hiding out in their apartments.
The overwhelming sentiment of the evening, unity is the best way to win the war on terror. But some say the conversation has already become too politicized, dividing the country over the best way to move forward.
I was wondering how such things can happen actually today in 21st century.
In the week since the attacks, more than 24 governors have expressed concerns over the way Syrian refugees entering the United States are screened. President Obama says the process is vigorous.
We also have to remember that many of these refugees are the victims of terrorism themselves. That's what they're fleeing. Slamming the door in their faces would be a betrayal of our values. Our nations can welcome refugees who are desperately seeking safety and ensure our own security. We can and must do both.
But Governor Mike Pence earlier this week directed state agencies to suspend the resettlement of Syrian refugees until he has more assurance from the federal government that proper security measures are in place. In a statement, Pence said, Indiana has a long tradition of opening our arms and homes to refugees from around the world. But as governor, my first responsibility is to ensure the safety and security of all Hoosiers. It's unclear whether governors actually have the authority to block refugees from entering their states because immigration policy is controlled by the federal government, but at least 2 families of Syrian refugees are being diverted to other states because of Pence's actions.
These individuals would be fingerprinted, their backgrounds would be checked quite rigorously, their names would be checked against existing databases of terrorists or potential terrorists, and consequently the likelihood of someone slipping through this very extensive net would be exceedingly slender. And consequently, I think we are letting our fears overcome our reason.
Because of that screening, security experts say it's much more difficult for radicals to make their way into the United States.
Whereas we, I think, are much more secure. I'm not saying that America is an impregnable fortress that we live in, but I think we are considerably more secure because of our peculiar geography and neighbors who are much more likely to cooperate with us to keep our borders secure, despite some of the overheated rhetoric in the presidential debates at the moment.
Back in Bloomington, people are focused less on the politics and more on the humanity, banding together to send a message they say is stronger than fear.
The only way we will prevail is by doing all the things that they're trying to prevent us from doing.
And Barbara, you've been following this story all week. How many Syrian refugees had Indiana resettled before Governor Pence announced the suspension?
Well, a spokesperson for the Family and Social Services Administration that says since 2010, we've resettled about 40 Syrian refugees here in Indiana. Many of those families have been located in Marion County is where they've resettled to. And the Connecticut Governor, Daniel Malloy, he met with that Syrian family we mentioned that was diverted this week to Connecticut. During a press conference, he said that he thinks taking these refugees in is the morally right thing to do. And according to the New York Times, that family is the first one that's really been impacted by this decision by several governors throughout the country that they're not going to take Syrian refugees into their states at this time.
You mentioned immigration is an issue the federal government has authority over, though. Is there any indication that Congress could take this issue up?
They actually already have. The House just yesterday, Joe, easily passed a bill that will suspend not only Syrian refugees from entering the country, but also Iraqi refugees. And they're suspending this until they have the assurances from the federal government that Governor Mike Pence is asking for. They want to know that there's plenty of security measures in place to make sure that these people are not going to do harm to others in the country. So Senator Dan Coates also wrote a letter this week with 4 other legislators asking President Obama to give some of those assurances as well. He wants to know more about how these refugees are screened and what extra security measures are going to be put in place in the wake of terrorist attacks.
Okay, thank you very much, Barbara. Bloomington Mayor Mark Kruzan already has his office packed up, but he still has some work to do before his term ends in a few weeks, in particular developing the trades district inside the downtown's Tech Park. At issue is a second proposal by CTP Partners. It's a group of local developers. The city has a letter of intent with Flattery and Collins from Indianapolis on a proposal. I sat down with Kruzan this week to ask his thoughts on the second proposal from CTP Partners.
To be completely fair, I am maybe the last person to ask that question because it's not a real proposal. It, I think, was offered to throw confusion into the process, and these are people who, right before they introduced that, were calling for delay, and then this came. And they have their reasons, and I disagree with them, but they have their case to make. And more importantly, I guess, in my opinion, is the tech sector. Envisage, in particular, testified at the last RDC meeting where the CTP partner proposal was offered that they're not interested in working with them.
There's been some talk, too, about the process maybe moving too quickly before a new administration comes in. How do you feel like this transition needs to happen for this process to keep going, though?
Well, I understand that. And now let's just cut to the chase what this really is. This is people suggesting that this is just Kruzan trying to get something done for his legacy. Joe, I will tell you, I don't believe mayors have legacies. Mayors have legacies in their own minds. What I do feel is important is this has been the part of a long time process, and we've got a lot of interested businesses that want to locate in that park.
Hard to believe we're down to weeks here left, as you mentioned,
42 days.
You're down to...
Not that I'm counting.
What all goes on right now in this transition period?
It's the clash of the administration that's leaving, wanting to tie up loose ends, get things done, and you've got a new administration excited to get going, and of course you've got employees who can get caught in the middle. You've got the outgoing mayor saying, hey, we need to do this, the incoming mayor saying, I want to do this. Certified Tech Park, good example, puts people in an awfully awkward position. But that having been said, John and I have already met a couple of times, talked about the transition. They succeed, the city succeeds, period.
We have one more opportunity with Mayor Kruzan. He's agreed to do a live broadcast on WTIU Radio Friday, December 4th at noon. Everyone is invited to join us at Uptown Cafe to comment or ask a question to Kruzan before he leaves office. Coming up next on Indiana Newsdesk. Lawmakers are trying to strike a balance between protecting religious freedom and protecting people from discrimination. Ahead, does their proposed legislation do that, or does it fall short? And Barbara Brosier will join us for the latest news headlines from across the state. These stories and more right here on Indiana Newsdesk.
Nature takes you places where you've never gone before.
It's watching something that's actually happened.
Nature sure drew me in the story.
Just their power and their grace.
It was just so beautiful to watch them.
The movement and just watching the body and watching the chase. Like this huge, lush, vibrant watercolor.
Chimps.
There was such a shot of underneath watching these elephants swim in this deep water.
I had no idea even they could swim like that.
I saw one monkey pulling on this one monkey's tail, and the monkey like, man, what you doing? What you doing?
It's like the theater of the wild or something.
7 billion trillion animals living on one planet.
It's like more colorful than than you think life can possibly be.
Somewhere between the mystique and the beauty of it is reason enough to sit down and watch.
That's life, and that's nature.
Welcome back to Indiana Newsdesk. The showdown between religious freedom and LGBT rights is underway at the State House. Both Republicans and Democrats agree lawmakers need to pass something comprehensive that tackles the balance between anti-discrimination protection and religious liberty. A so-called fix that would let the state move on from the RFRA controversy. Lawmakers released their proposed legislation this week. Our State House reporter Brandon Smith reports.
The scene this week at the State House looked familiar.
To begin this prayer, would you pray aloud with me?
Religious groups on one side praying for lawmakers to, in their words, do what's right.
We see a real conflict between the First Amendment, the 14th Amendment, and we think it's time that Christians came out of the closet, quit hiding so much, and engage in a battle.
On the other side, dozens rallying for the state to update its civil rights law.
Today is the beginning of a tough battle. And this will be our toughest test yet. But we know you're up for it, and so are we.
This marks the third straight legislative session dogged by issues surrounding gay rights. In 2014, it was a fight over a constitutional amendment banning same-sex marriage. Earlier this year, the controversy surrounded a religious freedom bill known as RFRA, perceived by some as a license to discriminate against the LGBT community. Lawmakers started work this summer on a piece of legislation aimed at finally putting the issue to bed. At Org Day this week, Senate Republicans released their first draft as a loud crowd outside continued to rally.
If they're for religious liberty, we've got a great carve-out for religious liberty. If it's for extending rights to the LGBT community, they have reached that goal as well. So I think there's reason for celebration on both sides, although I doubt that we're going to see that coming right out of the chute here,
The Senate GOP bill includes protection from discrimination based on sexual orientation and gender identity. It does so while exempting religious institutions, including churches, religious schools, and religious nonprofits. The measure also, for the first time in state law, defines sexual orientation and gender identity. Specifically, it says for a person to claim gender identity discrimination, they must prove their gender, either through medical records or by showing they've lived as the gender they say they are for at least 1 year. Senate Republican leader David Long says that requirement is intended to provide consistency when enforcing the law.
If you look around the country, it's a very difficult and varied definition that we look at. And Senator Holman has done his best to come up with one that makes sense and common sense so that we are sensitive to the fact that someone may be going through that process, but also sensitive to the fact that it doesn't make sense for someone to say, I woke up today and I'm a different gender. You have to deal with that.
Democratic leaders were quick to respond, expressing concern that the bill's definition of gender identity creates a gap that could leave transgender people open to discrimination. Minority Leader Tim Lannon, who authored the Democrats' version of the bill, says lawmakers need to show the world that discrimination as a matter of policy is not allowed in the state of Indiana.
And I think we should make no mistake that the citizens of this state and other states and businesses inside and outside of Indiana are watching to see what we do. And they want to know, will there be across-the-board protection and no license to discriminate?
The Senate GOP bill provides exemptions when it comes to the business of marriage. Those with 3 or fewer full-time employees do not have to provide services or participate in any same-sex marriage-related activities, including ceremonies or receptions.
Religious liberty is secondary, it seems at times in the eyes of the court, in trying to deal with this civil rights issue. And we want to make sure that both of them are addressed. So we beefed up the rights and clarified the rights of our organizations, of our pastors, of their affiliated groups, of our institutions of higher education as well as K through 12 schools that's affiliated with churches, to make sure that there's no question who is protected and exempted.
Freedom Indiana, the coalition that rallied against Indiana's ban against same-sex marriage and the Religious Freedom Restoration Act, is spearheading the drive for a civil rights law. In a statement, the group wrote it's encouraged the Senate is making civil rights a priority and will work with both chambers on a final version. But the national LGBT legal organization Lambda Legal quickly blasted the GOP's draft as a wolf in sheep's clothing, criticizing its emphasis on religious exemptions and noting it would supersede local human rights ordinances. This year, we've seen 17 municipal governments pass ordinances dealing with civil rights, particularly in the area of sexual discrimination. The GOP's proposal prohibits local governments from adopting ordinances that go beyond state law.
So the state is basically taking charge of this issue, and this will be the law of the land in the state of Indiana.
Governor Pence says he's still weighing the issue, and Republican lawmakers say they can't speak on his behalf. But Christina Inskeep, who's advocating on behalf of her son, who is transgendered, says she'd love the opportunity to sit down with Pence and let him know gay people, transgendered people are just regular people who want to live like any other Hoosier.
You know, we're living and working in this state. We are paying taxes, we volunteer, we go to church, we help out our neighbor, we go home and go to bed and feed the dog and all that stuff that everybody does. We're just regular people.
The legislature will take up the issue in January along with a host of other issues. Brandon Smith joins us now. Brandon, you've had a chance to read through the legislation. I want to stay on the topic of anti-discrimination for just a minute. We'll talk about some of the other items lawmakers laid out too. But if any part of the Senate GOP's proposal is struck down as unconstitutional, then Senator Long says the entire act fails. What's the rationale beyond that?
Well, here's how Senator Long explains it.
We don't want one piece to be cherry-picked out of it and the rest to stay. We think this entire package is necessary in order to have the fair and balanced bill that we're looking for.
Essentially what Long is saying is that the balance in this bill is how he's selling it to his members. And so if a court tries to upset that balance, he'd rather the whole law gets thrown out if just one piece is struck down.
Brandon, do you get the sense from lawmakers that they're trying to just get this out, the anti-discrimination bill, quickly just to address it so that they can move on to other things? Well, this is something that will come up later on as well?
It really depends on which lawmakers you're talking about. Senate Republicans clearly want to address this issue and move on, but House Speaker Brian Bosma wasn't nearly as definitive. In his floor speech, he talked about doing nothing as an option, though he did say that the legislature needs to have the conversation if nothing else. There is absolutely a scenario in which this issue is not resolved this session.
And lawmakers say another goal this session is to develop a comprehensive plan to fund transportation infrastructure. What's the clear consensus, though, on how to fund that, Brandon?
Well, it's really going to be a debate between short and long-term funding. Now, Governor Pence and Senate Democrats have come out with proposals, or excuse me, House Democrats have come out with proposals that are really about 4-year funding plans. Senate and House Republicans are looking for answers that go well into the next decade and beyond. So it's not necessarily a partisan issue here. It's going to be about the little details.
And Brandon, every year legislature says dub the year an education session. Do we see that again this year?
Absolutely, and it shouldn't surprise anyone that the top 2 education issues lawmakers say they're focused on are the teacher shortage and the statewide I-STEP scores. Now, House Speaker Brian Bosma has pledged to make it his chamber's #2 priority to find ways to attract more students to the teacher workforce. They're going to introduce a scholarship program, which was first brought up by State Board of Education member Gordon Hendry. And then lawmakers in both chambers say they need to work quickly to find a way to what's called decouple teacher evaluations from the statewide I-STEP scores, which are expected to be much lower than usual.
Okay, thank you very much, Brandon. Now, for headlines, we go over to Barbara Brozier, who has the latest on this week's top stories.
Thanks, Joe. The Commission on Improving the Status of Children will not pursue a statewide newborn safety incubator program, but advocates of the so-called baby boxes say there's hope for progress in the future. Baby boxes installed into the walls of safe haven locations are meant to provide mothers an extra layer of anonymity when dropping off unwanted newborns. The former face of the Subway sandwich chain will serve 15.5 years in prison and a lifetime of parole. That's higher than the sentencing guidelines, which recommended he be sentenced to between 10 and 13 years in prison. Jared Fogle formally pleaded guilty to child pornography and sex crime charges yesterday and was taken into federal custody. Drivers who live in predominantly black neighborhoods pay more for insurance than drivers in mainly white communities. A report from the Consumer Federation of America found drivers in African American communities are quoted rates 60 to 70% higher. Progressive and Farmers Insurance show the most disparity between white and black zip codes, but State Farm, Allstate, and Geico also charge substantially more. The group is calling on lawmakers to look at the issue. Hundreds of students gathered to discuss the racial climate at Indiana University in a town hall forum this week. The meeting was scheduled in response to an emergency town hall the Black Graduate Student Association held to address a racist threat made on the anonymous social media site Yik Yak.
I don't want you to stray away from saying the word racism or sexism or ageism or classism, because these are the words that you have to say because they're important. And I think that the fear of having somebody react strongly is crippling the institution.
Meanwhile, at Purdue, this week a group of students met behind closed doors with University President Mitch Daniels. They laid out 13 demands ranging from minority student and faculty recruitment goals to provisions in Purdue's speech policy to deal with what they consider hate speech. Daniels issued a statement following the meeting saying he is planning to continue the conversations with more than 24 other student organizations. The Department of Natural Resources has added largemouth bass to Griffey Lake in an effort to combat the lake's growing number of common carp. The DNR says common carp, which grow quickly, can have a negative impact on the lake's ecosystem, especially because of the way carp search for food.
Since they have that downward turn or terminal facing mouth that actually, or subterminal, that actually, they use that mouth to dredge up the sediment in search of their food, which is primarily insects. Well, in that process, they severely degrade water quality by suspending sediments, they uproot vegetation.
Kataka says common carp, which shouldn't be confused with similarly invasive species Asian carp, were not originally part of the Lake Griffey equation. And though the bass may help control the carp population, he says it's unlikely the same solution would work in combating Asian carp. That species mostly lives in streams, and Kataka says largemouth bass prefer lakes. Former Indiana Congressman Lee Hamilton is among 17 Americans who will receive the Presidential Medal of Freedom next week. It's the nation's highest civilian honor. Hamilton is being honored for his contributions to international relations and national security over his 4 decades working in politics.
And I think the deepest satisfaction comes from knowing that you're helping to the direction and the success of your country. And that's an abiding satisfaction.
Hamilton will be honored at the White House on Tuesday, and his list of accomplishments is so long, Joe. Not only did he serve in Congress for 3 decades, he was vice chair of the 9/11 Commission, and is just a very well-respected figure when it comes to international relations. So.
And he's quite among some special people on that
Yes,
list. Did you see that list?
Barbara Streisand, Steven Spielberg. He told me he thought he got on the wrong list after he saw those names.
That's amazing. Thank you so much, Barbara. And don't forget, we're off next week, Thanksgiving program note, but we'll be back the weekend after.
Yes, so happy Thanksgiving.
Yes, that's the end of this program, but our work continues online as we cover the news throughout the week at WTIUnews.org. Have a great weekend.
Indiana Newsdesk is made possible in part by the following. IU Center for Applied Cybersecurity Research, working to improve cybersecurity and provide policy guidance through partnerships with industry, government, and academia.
Smithville Fiber, the Gigacity Company, fiber internet, HD, and digital IPTV in southern Indiana. More information at smithville.com.
And by WTIU members. Thank you.